Why was Mumbai so significant? Because while it was watched live on television with everyone, we could also see the tremendous failure that was happening right in front of us. You know, an inefficient police force, poor response time, lack of a command center, you know, you name it. And it took a long, long time before we got it all under control. The concern was television coverage in some way giving the terrorists a lot of the information which then actually worsened the situation. I mean, these are 3 or 4 big issues that we need to look at as media. And this massive intelligence failure which we need to look up, which is beefing up intelligence, guarding the mega city. How can we, you know, look at Bombay, Delhi, these are the prime targets that are there, the major cities. How well can it be guarded? Looking at the coastal thing, because we saw the attack came from the coast, and so what needs to be done about it? Then the laws, financing, you know, looking at the army's response to some of these issues and how strong is the army, and, you know, what needs to be done. And of course, handling Kashmir, which is, some say, the genesis of the problem. And of course, and finally, what the public could do and how they could enjoy. What would happen if there is another Mumbai 26/11? Will India then go to war? I mean, are we prepared? Have we briefed our citizens enough? Because the first reaction I remember, soon after Mumbai 26/11 was, let's go and bang Pakistan. You know, let's hit them. You know, there was this whole thing of bloodthirst. Let's give an eye for an eye kind of thing. Let's not sort of take it lying down.
The Assistant Commissioner for Terrorism, or for Counter-Terrorism in London until this morning was Bob Quick. But Bob Quick, who resigned this morning, says, quote, prepare to be attacked. And I wanted to flag that up because we accept that we will be attacked by something or another, and therefore we prepare for it. It is far cheaper to prepare for an attack or a hazard than it is to respond to it. And so therefore we don't debate whether something's going to happen, we accept it will happen. The more you show to staff that you're putting in place counter-terrorism measures or protective security, they don't feel more alarmed by that, they actually feel more reassured. So it helps you build staff reassurance by keeping them informed and putting in place certain. The police and the government cannot do everything alone, and nor should they be allowed to, actually.
The first step in preventing or minimizing the damage that is caused by a terror attack is the assessment of the risk to the security system. This provides us with foundation for selection of implementation of countermeasure to reduce the risk that is associated with a new or with an existing threat. The problem is that unlawful events do not follow a natural or a predictable pattern. And the preparators will always try to defeat our system, always try to be a step ahead by collecting intelligence about us. There's a system, there's a methodology that's been designed to counter the highest level of threat in whatever operation. It doesn't matter if it's in aviation, if it's in maritime, if it's in the corporate industry. The highest level of risk are being identified, and it's a great tool for all of you to use.
The Prime Minister on record has gone as saying it's going to be one of the biggest challenges that India will face from a security perspective, which is the Naxalite movement. Our focus on terrorism, our focus on the aftermath of what happened in Bombay, where about 183 people got killed, it takes our mind away from the fact that, as you rightly mentioned, about 200 plus districts out of 600 in India are slowly coming under the control of a group which has all the incentive to prevent any sort of modernization, including the modernization of free flow of energy, free flow of fuel, free flow of roads, free flow of communication. If you have disruption in any one of them, it has a cascading effect which actually reaches right up to the common man. But if oil disruption is caused, or power disruption is caused, it postpones exams, it postpones careers, it actually throws schedules out of gear. The third part is that when you try to protect an infrastructure of this kind, it has its own peculiarities. One, it has to be protected from the standpoint of its own security. Second, it has to be protected from the standpoint of its own security. Third, it has to be protected from the standpoint of its own security. Fourth, it has to be protected from the standpoint of its own security. it is spread across different locations. The scaling of protection is very difficult because on one hand you have to protect large infrastructures, on other hand you have to protect regular pipelines which are running over hundreds of kilometers of fairly routine locations where nothing is happening for days together, for months together, and then suddenly one day there is an attack and the oil supply is disrupted. But how do you manage to keep guarding companies, police, CRPF, CISF on high alert for 360 days of a year when nothing is happening? The fact that oil, gas, power, infrastructure, supply chains are a lucrative, high rate of return interest targets, which means for a very marginal amount of effort put in by the terrorists, by foreign powers, by hostile groups, by negotiating agencies, their return on that investment is very, very high. We are now seeing increasingly, and Mr. Mehra will bear me out here, is that there is increased cooperation between them. So the hostile governments, and this could be a hostile government as far away as Myanmar, which is not even there in the radar. Now, when you look at that kind of a threat profile, the challenges that we are looking at seem far beyond a 26/11 attack, because that's a very tactical thing. This is strategic because this has to be focused on over the next few decades, not next few months, next few years, but next few decades. And this has to be built into the architecture of our energy security. So they tend to confuse terrorism with insurgency. These are two different animals. Normally these are clubbed together, and sometimes they are even dealt similarly, which is very different. Terrorism is when about 5 or 10% of different ideologies come into a community, usurp the leadership of that community, and take control by intimidation. And terrorism therefore needs to be dealt with by attacking terrorists, by actually killing terrorists. Insurgency is a movement which starts from grassroots because of some basic inherent deficiencies that have not been provided to that community. That cannot be put down by armed units of BSS, CRPF or the army. That cannot be put down because that's a people's movement. The only way for an oil and gas power or an installation to be reasonably sure that they will not be attacked by insurgents is to get the insurgents stakehold or the local population stakehold into this facility. That facility must give them jobs, that facility must give their children education, that facility must improve the aspirational quotient of that region. If that doesn't happen, then they will be a target. If that happens, then the insurgents will not find the local support. Unfortunately, this strategic shift is not understood by many organizations, and they continue to huddle in their own sort of fortress mentality. There is no way that 5,000 oil and gas and security and power people are going to beat 5 million local insurgents who don't have food to eat, or local populations who are then leveraged by insurgents. And I think this again is a very, very strategic aspect that we must keep in mind.